That morning started like any other. The coffee pot gurgled in its usual rhythm, and the smell of dark roast drifted into the hallway. I stood there in my robe, watching it drip, pretending things were still normal. I poured Halton's cup, added just a splash of oat milk like he preferred, and placed it on the counter. He walked in moments later, barely nodded, and took the cup without a word. No thanks, no good morning. The silence sat thick between us, heavier than the autumn air drifting in from the cracked window above the sink. I told myself it was just stress. Work. Life. I'd been doing that a lot lately, excusing the distance. Sometimes, it's not the loud fights that end a marriage, it's the silence that eats through the walls. I watched him gather his laptop bag, eyes fixed on his phone like I didn't exist. A part of me wanted to stop him, ask him what had changed. But I didn't. I just stared at the back of his head until the door closed behind him. Lorna came to mind. My sister. Older by 6 years, sharper by 10. A lawyer who thrived on loopholes. She was always just helping Halton with the estate, always involved in things I didn't fully understand. I used to trust her. I used to think family meant something. My phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, Bank of Texas. Probably about the community donation I was organizing. I answered cheerfully, still trying to shake off the chill Halton had left behind. Mrs. Reeves? We just need to confirm the $86 million withdrawal from your family trust, authorized this morning. I didn't understand at first. I laughed, thinking it was some clerical mix-up. I think you've got the wrong Delcy Reeves, I joked. No ma'am, the banker replied. It's your joint trust with Mr. Reeves and Ms. Lorna Kendricks. I froze. My breath caught somewhere between my chest and throat. Can you repeat that? Of course. The $86 million transfer request from your family trust was submitted at 8:12 a.m. by Mr. Halton Reeves and Ms. Lorna Kendricks. We just need verbal confirmation before finalizing. I ended the call. My hands trembled so violently I almost dropped the phone. I called Halton, straight to voicemail. You've reached Halton's line. Leave a message. Click. I called Lorna's office. The receptionist, with a voice too chipper for what she was about to say, told me both Halton and Lorna were out of town. They mentioned a legal conference, Cancun, I believe. I didn't remember getting in my car. I just remember parking like a madwoman in front of Lorna's law firm, running through the glass doors. Her desk was empty. Not just empty, cleared. No files. No photos. Not even a paperclip. In her drawer, shoved between outdated client files, I found a large envelope addressed to me. Inside was a notarized document, dated 3 weeks ago, transferring control of the entire trust, my trust, to Halton. My name was there, my signature, but it wasn't mine. I used to trust the law. Until my sister became the law. My knees nearly gave out. I held the desk for balance, staring at the betrayal inked in black and white. Not just stolen, legally stolen. That's what burned the most. I returned home numb. But word travels fast in this city. 3 news vans were already parked on my street. Neighbors whispered from their porches. A former colleague of mine, Cynthia from the Women's Shelter Board, stood by my mailbox, speaking softly to a man with a camera. When she saw me, she looked away. She must have known, someone muttered. I didn't speak. I walked past them all. Inside, the walls felt smaller, tighter. Every framed award, every family photo, felt like a joke now. At dinner last month, Lorna raised a glass and said, "Money only stays with the smart ones." I thought she was quoting some Wall Street movie. But no, she meant it. I locked the door, drew the curtains, and turned off my phone. For the first time in years, I cried like a child. I screamed into the silence until my voice cracked. Then, nothing. Just me, the couch, and a framed photo of my grandfather on the mantel. Later that night, I rummaged through the old drawers in his antique desk, looking for anything. I don't know what I expected. A missing clause. A forgotten key. Instead, I found an envelope, yellowed with age, labeled in his handwriting, "For Dulcie, when the world feels unkind." Inside was a letter dated 1970. "Sweetheart," it began, "if you're reading this, life has handed you something bitter. Take it slow. Don't show you're hurt. And never, ever, let them see all your cards." I read that letter 3 times before I set it down. It didn't fix anything. It didn't bring back my money, or erase the betrayal. But it reminded me of something: I am still here. And if they think they took everything, they forgot one thing: me. I sat at the edge of my bed, the envelope still trembling in my hands. The letter wasn't long, but it felt endless. Grandpa's handwriting was tight, deliberate. He'd always written like he spoke, slow, firm, with weight behind every word. "Sweetheart," he wrote, "when people show you their greed, don't flinch. The good ones always think they're alone, until they start looking in the right shadows. There's a key hidden in them. And when your world turns upside down, remember the bottom drawer." I didn't need more than that. A memory sparked, a faint picture of Grandpa's old desk. It had been sitting in the garage since we moved into this house, shoved in a corner, half covered in dust and moving blankets. I kicked off the bedsheet, grabbed a flashlight, and headed for the garage barefoot. The air was musty. The kind that hits your nose with decades of stale wood and oil. I dragged boxes aside, coughing from the stirred-up dust. There it was, his oak desk. Sturdy. Heavy. With a bottom drawer that never opened. I knelt beside it, my heart tapping fast. The lock still glinted in the dim light, but the wood around it had weakened. I pressed my fingers underneath, where the grain split slightly from years of humidity, and pried gently. The latch snapped. Behind a metal plate inside the drawer was a smaller cavity, a compartment I'd never noticed. I reached in and pulled out a thin bundle wrapped in cloth. Inside was a bank book, dated 1970. The label, Commercial Bank of Texas. I squinted at the numbers. Regular deposits, starting small, then growing. The last deposit was in 1994. I flipped to the back, no withdrawals. A yellowed note slipped out from the pages. Grandpa's handwriting again. "For the one who chooses justice over comfort." I stood there, staring down at it. Not crying. Not trembling. Just still. Like the house had finally stopped spinning. I walked back inside and locked every door behind me. The weight of the discovery hadn't hit yet, but it would. I didn't want to risk losing it. I needed a place to hide the bank book until I figured out what it meant. I grabbed the old Bible from my bedroom shelf, the one with the thick cover and the hollowed-out pages where I used to keep notes from Grandpa when I was a teenager. I slipped the bank book in and closed it, placing it back where it always sat, third book from the left, next to Romans. I thought about Porter, my cousin. Used to be a cop before politics got ugly and he walked away. He was sharp, honest. Knew how to follow trails. But this was family. And trust wasn't something I had in supply. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea I didn't remember making. My hand rested on the Bible. If Grandpa trusted me with this, I whispered, then I can't act out of revenge. I have to move smart. The house felt too quiet. Like it was watching me. I walked through each room, slowly, as if the walls might whisper something. Every corner held memories, most of them now stained. In the living room, the wedding photo was missing. Just the nail where it used to hang. I hadn't taken it down. The kitchen counter still held my wedding ring. I'd taken it off before that last charity gala, just hours before the world caved in. I hadn't worn it since. Shadow, my old retriever, whimpered by the door. His eyes locked on me, ears low. He knew something was wrong before I did. Dogs are like that. I pulled open drawers without thinking, looking for something, maybe nothing. And then I saw it. Taped underneath the drawer, just above where the silverware used to be, a second envelope. Grandpa's handwriting again. This one wasn't a letter. It was a will. Dated years before the one Lorna had filed in probate court. It didn't match hers. In this version, the trust remained untouched, with strict limitations on who could move funds. My name appeared in bold print, sole executor. They forged more than my trust, I said aloud, the words bitter in my mouth. They forged his legacy. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat in the den, turning the bankbook in my hands, reading every line of the will until the sun rose. Tomorrow, I'd go to the bank. And after that, I'd find out just how far Lorna was willing to go to bury the truth. I woke before dawn, the hotel room light still dim, the cold Texas morning bleeding into the glass facade of downtown Dallas. I pulled on my jacket and left without breakfast. The roads felt emptier than usual, as if the city itself sensed the shift in my purpose. I kept repeating one line from Grandpa, people respect the ones who keep walking when others expect them to crawl. I didn't feel fear anymore, just focus. When I reached the bank, the lobby was pristine. Gladiolus white walls, marble tile, the smell of disinfectant and coffee, polite smiles paired with stiff suits. I clutched my folder, papers rattling like a deck of cards someone stacked against me. Mr. Calloway, the records manager, met me at reception, gray hair, office sweater, eyes that knew old money systems. Ms. Marlin, he said quietly, your grandfather left quite a legacy. He led me to a back room of microfilm reels and archived vaults. I watched as he threaded a reel from the 1970s, one marked simply SMWT Trust 1970 to 1994. My heart started to beat faster, realizing I was here for more than notes and file names. His screen lit up with account numbers, deposits, code names. In the list, Silas W., Weatherby Trust. Beneath it, another, L. Greaves Foundation. I recognized the name of my sister's shell corporation. He inhaled and said, there's an account your sister accessed in 1989. It's been dormant since 1994. This one under your grandfather's name might have been untouched. But the second, well, that's what you'll likely want to see. I felt a cold east wind run through me. The betrayal spanned decades. I asked him for printouts. He hesitated. You didn't hear this from me. A wink to underline the risk. He handed over a sheet thicker than I expected. I turned it over in my hands, transfers, shell companies, missing tax logs. My sister's early big settlement suddenly made sense. I sat in my car, in the garage of the bank, flipping the pages one by one. At 19, Lorna walked into my parents' home smiling about winning her first high-pay case. She said nothing about where the seed money came from. I remembered then the nights she locked her laptop in a cabinet. I recognized the code, Project Lightning. The money trail, the trust named after Grandpa, all of it painted a picture of how smart she really was. When I left the bank, the street felt different. My phone buzzed, a blacklisted number. Text, stop digging. You won't like what you find. I parked, hand gripping the steering wheel until it hurt. I didn't answer. I knew better now. This wasn't just family trouble. It was fraud, legacy theft, generational betrayal. I saved the message. I drove home slowly, the city lights blurring into guilt and resolve. Back at the house, I placed the printouts into the same drawer where Grandpa's yellowed letter sat. I took a deep breath. They stole more than my trust, they stole his name, I whispered. After that, I closed the blinds and sat quietly in the dark, the noise of the world outside reminding me that someone somewhere thought this would silence me. But it didn't. When I picked up the phone, my hand didn't shake. I'd already crossed too many lines to go back. The number I dialed wasn't one I'd used in years. Benjamin Rusk, former federal investigator, part-time ghost hunter of the legal world, and the only man I knew who still owed me a favor. He answered on the second ring, his voice calm and gravelly. Delcy. Been a while. It has, I said. I need information, and I need it fast. There was a pause long enough to tell me he understood exactly what kind of trouble I was in. You're not the only one chasing ghosts, Delcy, he finally said. Come to Austin. We'll talk when I see your eyes. The drive took 3 hours, but it felt like half a lifetime. I kept thinking about what Lorna once said over a glass of wine, laws bend for those who write them. She wasn't joking. By the time I reached the edge of Austin, the night had deepened into that quiet, predatory stillness before dawn. Benjamin's office sat in a converted warehouse near the river, all glass and steel, cameras angled at every corner. This wasn't the lawyer's space. It was a bunker. He greeted me with that same unreadable stare, the kind that could dismantle a lie without a word. You look like hell, he said. Good, I replied. Means I'm paying attention. He didn't offer coffee or small talk. He just gestured toward a chair and said, Tell me everything. So I did. The trust. The withdrawals. The forged documents. The offshore trails. I laid it all out in plain detail while he scribbled in yellow ink. He didn't interrupt once. When I finished, he leaned back inside. That's one hell of a nest your sister built. He got up, unlocked a cabinet, and pulled out a thin, dust-coated folder. You might want to see this. Inside were sealed files from an old malpractice case, one Lorna had represented 15 years ago. According to the records, a whistleblower doctor tried to expose her client's fraud. The case vanished. Now I knew why. She buried this, Benjamin said. Fake affidavits. Paid witnesses. She learned early how to rewrite the truth. I stared at the evidence, my pulse loud in my ears. She didn't just bend the law. She made it crawl. Benjamin nodded slowly. You're not just unraveling a scam. You're threatening someone's entire kingdom. He handed me another file. This one thicker, with red tabs. Inside were letters of coercion, offshore ledgers, even scanned court orders sealed under Lorna's name. Every page confirmed the same thing, Halton had been her partner long before he became my husband. Their connection ran through shell companies and Cayman accounts, the same ones that swallowed my family's fortune. I felt heat rise in my throat. I remembered the night Halton dismissed me with that casual smirk, you wouldn't understand, Delaware. It's business. Now I understood. My own identity had been the front. Every transaction had gone through accounts in my name. My name had been weaponized. I wasn't just left behind, I said quietly. I was used. Benjamin watched me without pity. He'd seen worse, but I think he respected the way I didn't crumble. "You've got two choices," he said. "Leak this now, or keep digging. Find the nail that seals the coffin." I didn't hesitate. "This can't be a whisper war. It has to roar." He smiled faintly, almost proud. "Then be ready. Once you walk out that door with those files, daylight's not your friend anymore." I took the folder, tucked it under my coat, and stood. My reflection in his glass door looked like a stranger, one with fewer illusions and sharper edges. I walked into the parking lot, the night air biting against my face. Across the street, a black sedan idled with its lights off. Same one from Dallas. I didn't flinch. I didn't speed up. I just walked, steady, calm, as if they weren't there at all. 2 blocks later, I ducked into a rundown motel with flickering neon lights. The clerk barely looked up as I paid cash. Inside the room, I sat on the bed and pulled out a burner phone from my purse. The first message I sent was short. "Time to build a war chest." The motel room still smelled like dust and old coffee when the burner phone buzzed in my hand. I dialed the number Benjamin had given me months before, back when I thought I'd never need it. Mabel Ruiz answered after 3 rings, her voice calm, weary, but unmistakably cautious. "Who's asking?" "It's Delcy Marlin," I said. "I need to talk about my grandfather's estate." There was a pause, then a soft exhale. "You picked a dangerous topic to resurrect. Meet me in Garland. Law Archive. Noon. And come alone." I hung up, grabbed my fireproof bag, and began packing everything I had: bank ledgers, photos, Benjamin's files, the forgeable copies. For the first time, I called it what it was, my war chest. Grandpa's voice echoed in my head, "You don't win wars with anger, sweetheart. You win them with records." The drive from Austin to Garland cut through open fields and slow-moving trucks. My mind stayed locked on the thought that my silence had given them everything: space, power, and cover. But silence had another use too. It could hide preparation. When I arrived, Mabel was already there, leaning against a rusted file cabinet. She looked older than I remembered, sharp eyes, steady hands, the kind of woman who'd seen too many men twist laws for profit. "I worked for your grandfather once," she said. "He trusted me. I shouldn't have trusted the rest." She led me into a narrow records room that smelled of paper and age. Boxes lined the walls, stacked to the ceiling. "I kept copies," she whispered. "Some things shouldn't vanish." She unlocked a drawer and slid out a binder labeled Weatherby Estate, 1994. My pulse quickened. Inside was a will, handwritten, notarized, and dated after the one Lorna had filed. This one was clean, direct, and unmistakable: the entire Weatherby Trust to Delcy Marlin, conditional upon moral stewardship of assets. I stared at it, speechless. "She stole this." "She did more than that," Mabel said quietly. "She filed the wrong one, then had the firm seal it under a different index. I left the same week." Her hands trembled slightly as she handed me a copy. "I've lived too long with the wrong kind of silence. Don't you start." I took the papers and slid them into my bag. Gratitude burned against disgust, the kind that makes your jaw ache. I thanked her, and when I turned to leave, she said, "If you take this public, you'd better have more than one copy." I smiled faintly. "Trust me. I'm learning from the best." The next day, I drove south, toward Navarro County. Grandpa had once mentioned gifting me land there, a plot I never visited. Curiosity and instinct pulled me off the highway, down a dirt road lined with cedar trees and the ghosts of barbed wire fences. At the end stood a small cabin, weathered but solid. I forced open the door. Dust floated like snow through the sunlight. The place smelled of oil and thyme. I walked through the narrow rooms, running my hand along the old pine walls, until something caught my eye, a ledger embedded inside a panel. I pried it loose. Inside were pages of handwritten transactions, matching the bank deposits from decades earlier. Grandpa had kept his own record, separate from every lawyer, every bank. I dropped to my knees and knocked along the floorboards until a hollow echo answered. Underneath, a small metal tin. Inside, cash, 14,000 in worn bills, and folded deeds, one of them signed in my name. My breath caught. Grandpa hadn't just trusted me. He'd armed me. Not all battles are fought in boardrooms, I whispered. Some start in dirt and silence. I used part of the cash to hire a paralegal through a referral from Benjamin, discreet, efficient. Together, we began cataloging everything, bank logs, property records, transfer slips, every crooked step my sister ever took. At night, back in the motel, I spread the documents across the bed. For the first time, the chaos formed a pattern. I could see the machinery of their betrayal and how to dismantle it. In the bathroom mirror, I practiced my words for when the time came. No anger. No shouting. Just truth sharpened to a knife's edge. I won't need to yell, I told my reflection. I'll just read. The motel clock blinked past midnight when my laptop chimed. A new email, subject line, found him. It was from the private investigator I'd hired weeks earlier. My stomach tightened as I clicked the attachment. The image loaded slowly, grainy but clear enough. Halton. Sitting at a marble bar, a drink in hand, sunlight cutting through a window behind him. The location tag at the bottom of the photo read, Mexico City. I didn't sleep the night I saw Halton's picture. His face, that same calm, smug grin, staring back at me from a luxury bar in Mexico City. The next morning, I booked a last-minute flight using prepaid cards. No paper trail. No warning. I packed one bag, one camera, one purpose. I wasn't flying for closure. I was flying for proof. The air in Mexico was thick, the kind that sticks to your skin and makes the world feel slower. But my pulse didn't match the weather. It raced. I checked into a small hotel 3 blocks from where the investigator had spotted him. I kept the curtains drawn, the lights low, the camera ready. For 2 days, I followed him from a distance. He looked comfortable, too comfortable. Expensive suits, drinks poured by name, a younger woman laughing beside him. Watching him live so freely while my life had been picked apart piece by piece filled me with something darker than anger. It was disbelief that a man could burn his own home and still smile in the ashes. I recorded everything, every glass he lifted, every name he dropped, every bill he signed. This is what deception buys, I whispered into the recorder, voice steady. This is what greed looks like when it thinks it's safe. Then it happened, he handed his passport to the bartender for verification. I caught a clear shot of it on my camera. The name wasn't Halton. It was H. Greaves. My sister's last name. The social security number printed below it. Mine. My stomach twisted. He hadn't just betrayed me, he'd built a life under my identity. That night, I couldn't sit still. My hands trembled, but my mind was clear. The next evening, I dressed in gray, neutral, forgettable, and followed him to a cigar lounge across from the plaza. He was already there, mid-laugh, smoke curling around his head like a crown. I walked straight to his table and stopped inches away. He looked up, the color draining from his face. Delcy? I didn't answer. I set the photo of Grandpa's will and the bank tin on the table between us. You left these out of the wedding vows, I said quietly. He laughed once, a weak, nervous sound. You don't know what you're doing. I leaned forward. You're not smart enough to silence me. His hand twitched toward the papers. I slid them closer, along with the notarized document Benjamin had prepared, proof of the offshore accounts in my name. 2 Mexican attorneys I'd hired sat quietly nearby, watching. His jaw tightened. You think you can scare me with old paper? I don't need to scare you, I said. I just need to show the right people how deep you went. The air shifted. His confidence cracked. For the first time, he looked small, just a man cornered by his own arrogance. You've been stealing from me for years, I said. Using my name to wash money through your deals. My grandfather's trust paid for your fake empire. He looked away, silent. I could see the sweat behind his collar. I stood, pushing the chair back slowly. You've got 72 hours. Every cent. You return it, or I file. He blinked, like he hadn't heard right. You wouldn't. Oh, I would, I cut him off. And I'll make sure your lawyer sister falls with you. I walked out without looking back. The 2 attorneys followed, one of them whispering, Senora, that was bold. It was overdue, I said. Back at the hotel, I closed the curtains again and spread the papers across the bed. I started outlining everything, the timeline, the fraud trail, the false passport. I wasn't thinking about revenge anymore. I was building a case so solid it would outlive all of us. Grandpa's words came back like a slow echo. They think silence means weakness. They're wrong. By morning, I had a plan. File first in civil court, then whistleblower protection, then open the floodgates with the press if needed. Every detail, every number, every word was part of a larger war. 2 days later, I landed back in Texas. My voicemail blinked, a new message. Delcy, this is Melinda Troy. Retired detective. I looked into Lorna years ago. Let's talk. Her voice was slow, deliberate. You're not the first she's burned. But you might be the last. Her words carried the kind of truth that cut deep. I called her back immediately. We set a meeting for the next evening, private, off record. I could feel the next phase building, something heavier, closer. That night, as I returned to the motel, the clerk handed me an envelope. No name, no return address. Just my room number, written in clean, sharp handwriting. I tore it open. Inside was a black and white photograph, my grandfather standing outside a bank in 1970, shaking hands with a young woman. The woman looked exactly like Lorna. The date stamped on the back didn't make sense. Lorna would have been 12. I walked into the red sandstone hall of the courthouse with a folder tucked tightly under my arm. The echo of my heels on the marble felt louder than anyone else's. This was the building where I once celebrated promotions and board meetings. Now I stood here as the one they underestimated. A woman who refused to vanish. The guard asked for my ID. I handed over a card and a map of my fate. I sat down in the gallery before the proceedings. Someone nearby leaned in and whispered, "She must have done something." I kept my gaze straight ahead. I reminded myself, showing up is half the fight. I wasn't here for comfort. I was here for truth. I navigated the corridor into the gallery where photos of founders and donors lined the wall, each framed achievement louder than the last. I came to a halt when I saw the photograph of the founding ceremony, my grandfather on the left, the board of trustees to the right, everyone present except me. In my place was my sister. My breath hitched. Years of being invisible, erased in one image. I took a seat directly behind the line of frames. My mind said, they erased me, but they didn't erase the work I did. The hush in the gallery made the omission scream, and I felt every second of being forgotten. An assistant led me into a conference room. My sister, dressed in a tailored suit, sat across the polished table with her legal team. Papers were placed one by one. The invitations. The board minutes. The will. My sister offered me an insincere smile. We're glad you finally showed up. I didn't rise to the bait. I said quietly, I've shown up every hour you thought I'd be silent. She reached for a glossy invite card, and I saw the label, Guest, Halton's spouse. Not co-founder. Not even Ms. Marlin. That card said everything. A small insult. A giant lie. I opened my folder and slid the notarized will across the table. My voice was calm, edged with cold certainty. You didn't just label me wrong. You rewrote the entire story. The room went still. Then whispers started. Lawyers shifted. My sister's face tightened. I watched her eyes go from triumph to shock. The will was signed in my grandfather's hand. The trail of funds, the forged documents, they all pointed to one clear fact: she had built an empire on our family's legacy. I felt vindicated in a way that was quieter than anger but sharper. I spoke firm, without shouting. Your counterfeit name for me is proof. You knew exactly what you were doing. The calm of the courtroom gave weight to my words. The spectators and attorneys alike felt it. I didn't roar. I reported. And that made the difference. As I exited the room, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown sender: it's not over. Look under the table. I crouched down and pulled out a USB stick taped beneath my sister's table. My stomach twisted. I pocketed it. This wasn't the end. It was unveiling the next layer. I lifted my head and walked out under the courthouse's high arches, sunlight cutting through the pillars and lighting my path. I wasn't hidden anymore, not in my name. Not in my legacy. I locked the motel door, shut the curtains tight, and slipped the USB into my old laptop. The fan on the machine whirred louder than usual, as if it knew what was coming. A folder popped open and started playing instantly. Video footage. Halton and Lorna, seated in what looked like a garden patio, 2 years ago. Lorna's voice was cold. You marry her, you access the trust. It's that simple. Don't catch feelings. Halton laughed. She's not my type. I paused the video. My breath caught somewhere between my chest and throat. I stared at the screen, watching my reflection hover over the paused frame. That's all I ever was to him, a path to money. A pawn. I hit play again. The rest of the conversation was full of dates, numbers, names. Like a contract. The next folder had emails, all from a private Gmail account I'd never seen before. Subject lines hit like glass in a garbage disposal. Leverage after loss. She'll believe what we write. Access via marital route. My finger hovered above the trackpad, frozen. One message read, she's more obedient when grieving. I couldn't read another word. I leaned back in the stiff motel chair, letting silence stretch like tar. This wasn't heartbreak. It was betrayal built brick by brick. My whole marriage a lie scripted by someone who shared my blood. One more folder. A grainy black and white video. Label read, Silas Confession 1970.mov. There he was, my grandfather. Younger. Cleaner lines in his jaw, but same weight in his eyes. He sat at a desk, old-style tape recorder beside him. "If you're watching this," he said, "someone's taken what isn't theirs." I blinked, leaned forward. "I made mistakes before I married your grandmother. One of them was a girl in Kentucky. We had a child. I arranged funds for her years ago. Separate account. Sealed ledger." I sat upright. His voice shook slightly. "Her name was Mary Lou. Her daughter's name is Carol." Carol. That was Lorna's mother. My heart stalled. I ran it back. Played it again. Lorna wasn't just ambitious. She was family, but not the kind she pretended to be. She didn't inherit my trust. She inherited a side door and kicked it wide open. I stepped outside. The air was cold, biting through my jacket like punishment. I pulled out my phone. Scrolled through Halton's old messages. Not once had he called me anything soft. Not once did he write without CCing someone. No good morning. No I miss you. Just logistics. I remembered the night he proposed, on my birthday, the candlelit dinner, the ring box. In the background now, I could see her. Lorna. Filming. I whispered aloud, I was a project. A checklist. The wind answered nothing. The next day, I met with Melinda Troy again. We sat at a diner outside Waco. She brought her own laptop. We watched the footage together. Her jaw stayed tight the whole time. "This isn't just family drama," she said. "This is federal fraud." We uploaded encrypted versions to secure archives. She prepped a case summary, enough to reopen 3 closed files on Lorna's firm. I started drafting a blog post under a fake name. The title came easy, "When Family Wears a Mask." I didn't want revenge anymore. I wanted clarity. I wanted every lie to unravel itself in public daylight. Near midnight, while I was brushing my teeth, my laptop dinged. New email. No sender. No subject. Just one line. "You're not the only one with videos. Check your front door." I set the toothbrush down, walked slowly to the door, opened it. No one there. Just an envelope lying flat. Inside was a photo. Faded. From the 70s. Grandpa. Holding a child on his lap. But it wasn't me. The morning air was dry, but not cold. I sat in Grandpa's rocking chair, the old oak one he used to keep on the back porch. It creaked gently beneath me as I held the photo of that child, unknown, smiling, seated on his lap like they belonged there. Tucked behind it was a folded letter. The paper was yellowed, the ink faded, but his handwriting never changed. "My estate," it began, "should protect what blood tried to erase." My hands trembled. The letter was an amendment to his original will, signed, dated, notarized, and hidden away for decades. In it, Grandpa made it clear, if any beneficiary acted against the moral trust of the family, their claim would be revoked. Lorna's mother had done just that. Quiet as it was kept, the betrayal had a history longer than I realized. I called Hopkins. He came in person. Scanned the document in silence, then looked up at me. "It's legitimate. We can challenge everything." I nodded. No tears this time. No breath held in fear. Just calm, the kind that settles deep when truth finally shows up and stands its ground. I uploaded the USB contents to a private archive first, masked behind a pseudonym. Then, I emailed the edited clips to a half-dozen newsrooms. Cassandra from the Denver Herald was the first to call. Her voice crackled with urgency. "This is explosive," she said. "We're running this today." By noon, headlines were everywhere. The footage, the emails, the audio. Every smear, every deceit laid bare. Lorna's face plastered across morning television. Holton's real estate license suspended. Subpoenas landed like dominoes. I didn't feel joy. I felt clean. It was like I'd been carrying someone else's dirt for years, and now, finally, it was in the hands of the ones who put it there. I drove down to the assisted living center 2 days later. First time I'd seen my mother since fall. She sat in her usual chair, TV humming low in the background. Her eyes flicked to the screen. Lorna's mugshot filled the corner. She didn't speak right away. Just watched the ticker scroll across the bottom, heiress accused of fraud. "Lorna did all this?" she whispered. I didn't answer right away. I sat across from her, folded my hands. "You always told me to be more like her," I said, quietly. "I hope you don't still believe that." She looked away. I waited. She didn't apologize. She just reached over and took my hand. We sat like that for a while. Maybe we were both grieving the version of family we thought we had. That night, back in my rented cabin, I worked with Hopkins and Officer Troy to build the full timeline. We laid it all out, the coercion, the forged signatures, the shell accounts. I rehearsed my testimony alone, under a bare bulb in the kitchen. My voice bounced off the empty walls. This was never about money. It was about erasure. I gathered everything I had from Grandpa, journals, letters, his old voicemails. I remembered how he always left one at New Year's, like clockwork. I played the last one again. "You got more fire in you than they're ready for, kid," he said. "Don't let them decide your value." Hopkins discovered one final clause in the trust. A reversal trigger, any transfer proven to be coerced, manipulated, or misrepresented could be legally undone. Clean slate. The day before the hearing, I got a voicemail. It was Holton. "Please don't testify. Let's just talk." I deleted it before it finished playing. The next morning, I zipped my suitcase, checked the file folder twice, and walked out the door toward the courthouse. No more what-ifs. No more hoping someone else would do the right thing. Some truths don't need to be spoken, they need to be recorded.